I'm Judith Plaskow. I define myself as a Jewish feminist theologian, and I teach religious studies at Manhattan College. I went to Yale University in the late 60s and early 70s and got my doctorate in religious studies, particularly philosophical theology there. And I think what most deeply influenced my professional life is that the beginning of my second year at Yale, I became a feminist. And that completely turned upside down my understanding of myself and of the world, and it has profoundly shaped my career from that moment onward. For example, the whole time that I was at Yale, I was never assigned a single book or article by a woman. But until I became a feminist, I didn't notice that. I'd gone to Yale to study theology. Theologians were men. Who else would I be reading? When I became a feminist, all of a sudden I began to ask, well, first of all, was it true that all theologians were men? Were there women out there who we weren't reading? But secondly, what did it mean if it's insofar as it was true that theology has been defined by men, what did that mean for its understanding of the world? How would we see God and ethics and nature and the meaning of life differently if women were part of the process of asking the important theological questions and providing the answers? So that question, what does it mean that women have been absent? What would it mean for women to fully participate in the creation and formulation of religious traditions have been the central issues for me since 1969 when I became a feminist, 30 years. Yes, the person who has been most important to me is my fellow graduate student in theology, Carol Christ. I cannot imagine what I don't know that I would have gotten through graduate school had it not been for Carol. And there were no mentors at that point. I mean, there were Rosemary Ruther and Mary Daly and Elizabeth Schussler-Fiorenza was still in Europe, so there were a few people, but we didn't know about them. They weren't at major graduate institutions in the U.S. There were no women for us to study with. We were creating the field as we went along. So the people who have profoundly influenced me are not mentors of an older generation, but my peers, because we provided we legitimized each other's questions. We were the ones who said, you're not crazy. That's not a crazy question. What we got all the time in graduate school is, why are you girls always talking about women? When you're studying Karl Barth and he says that women are ontologically subordinate to men, why do you get hung up on that? That's not his main point. And it was we who said to each other, no, that's a really important question. That ties into his whole theological system. It's not a marginal point that has no relationship to anything else. So it was many peers. I mean, then in the early 70s, we began a Women in Religion section within the American Academy of Religion, and there were many, many women who have profoundly influenced my thought. I mean, we created the field together.